Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
Myself, Stephen George. Good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday the 17th of December 2017. I hope you're getting all your Christmas bits and pieces together and get things organised. You're 1 week to go. As we'll say at the end of the show, there's going to be no OYM show next Sunday. We're going to take the time off. It's the 24th. Santi is going to be on his way. And we have to do what we have to do as dads. So, more so you than me.
We could technically do a show, but I think we'd both be killed.
Yeah, we would be killed.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't be enjoying Christmas dinner because we'd be dead.
Have no teeth. That's it. You can't shoot Brussels sprouts with no teeth, Alan.
Exactly. Right, our guests on the show tonight is Simon and Mark from You and Your Cash. We've had Simon and Mark on before, and we're going to get an update from Simon and Mark and all the bits and pieces they've been doing and helping to educate people about the legal system and your rights and everything else. But before we do that, let's find out what the communication channels are.
Okay, here we go.
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Thank you, Mary. Yes, the OYM chat room is oymradio.com. You will see the link there for the chat room. If you've registered, just click on the link and you will automatically be logged in, and you can post your questions for Simon and Mark there. We also have the chat room on People's Internet Radio as well. We're monitoring that one as well for the questions. So a big hi to everyone logged into both of the chat rooms. We also have the usual channels for communication. We have the Facebook, the anti-social media. We have the YouTube page. With lots of great information on there. We also have Twitter, allegedly. I still haven't figured that one out. And the telephone line 046 927 1212 if you're ringing from inside Ireland, and from outside it's 00353 46927 1212. We also have a text number as well. It's 087 4034 854. From outside Republic of Ireland, it's 00353 874 034 854. All those numbers can be found on the front of the website, along with the link for the email info@oymradio.com. We love getting emails, just a quick one-liners to say hi. So yeah, please do feel free to fire us off an email. And we're also on, is it Sound? I can't remember. Soundgarden?
Radio Garden.
Radio Garden. Yes, there's a website there, radiogarden.com. And you can pick up radio stations from all over the world. We're on that as well, as some people have heard us on there and sent over some very nice emails, so thanks for that. And we're also on the TuneIn Radio. We're on there also. You can find the link on the bottom of the website. Alan?
I think Soundgarden is a band, isn't it?
Soundgarden is a band,
yes. Is a band. Okay, starting off with a couple of things that we want to mention before we get our guests on. The Business Post.ie, they wrote that AIB writes off 10 million in Irish Examiner sale as 200 jobs on the line. We're going to see more of this as times go on. The Irish Times has agreed to buy the Cork-based media company that publishes the Irish Examiner. Some of the job losses will arise from shared resources in departments including commercial, distribution, human resources and IT. That's obviously more job losses going to go. I don't know how them people are going to manage or cope with the state of the country at the moment. It's just in a complete mess. I know we say this all the time. Why do we vote for these same people all the time? Why do people vote for them? Because
we're not given much of an alternative choice.
Well, yeah, I know.
As you said before, it's the same. It's a circus with the same clowns.
Yeah. Well, maybe people should just say, "I'm not voting," and that's it. Right, off to you for part two.
For part two, yes, we have the independent.co.uk says marijuana compound is harmless and should be available. The WHO says, that's the World Health Organization. A compound derived from marijuana has health benefits and should not be subject to government restrictions, the WHO said recently. Recent evidence from animal and human studies shows that its use could have therapeutic value for seizures due to epilepsy and such related conditions. And that is not likely to be abused or create dependence as for other cannabinoids, it added. The decision was not an endorsement for medical marijuana. Instead, the global body's experts committee on drug dependence specifically examined the potential risks and benefits CBD, a compound that is found in the cannabis plant. It is distinct. It is distinct. Sorry, I've got the wrong teeth in.
Yeah.
It is distinct from THC. Unlike THC, the CBD does not have intoxicating effects. In other words, it does not produce a high. So yeah, that's good information. I think they're on the right track. The WHO is on the right track, but you know what they say and what actually happens are two different things, because it's all down to governments and legislation. I think the people have been speaking out about it for long enough now, and we're starting to see small changes. So maybe we just need to shout a little bit louder.
It's beginning to happen. We've got our licensing over here for Vera Toomey, for her little girl, for the medical marijuana because of the fits that she was having. So that's a step in the right direction. Hopefully now that's a snowball gone down the hill, and it'll start to roll out, and then more and more people can avail of the medical cannabis for their symptoms. So that's a good thing to see. Right, how's your week, Steve?
Yeah, my week's been good. Not too much to report. Only kind of a couple of things, because obviously I've been busy working and busy doing the run up to Christmas. Probably the same as a lot of people out there. A lot of people who are lucky enough to be able to do it, I suppose. It was brought to my attention recently. Well, when I say recently, it was this morning by my wife. There's a comedian, seemingly. I've heard the name, but I don't know him. Maybe you know him. Michael McIntyre.
Yeah.
You know?
I know him, yeah.
Okay, right. Well, seemingly he does a show, and there was some chap on, and I was getting told this morning how funny this chap was. And they started telling me about the sketch. And the sketch was the man of the house calling all the family together and complaining about how they load the dishwasher.
Mm.
And they were telling me this, and they said it was so funny. And I do that all the time, but no one laughs. I'm not joking. I've actually called people in from the sitting room and say, who put those plates in there? Why weren't they rinsed off? And that doesn't go there, and that goes, you know. But yeah, they weren't laughing, but they all laughed at this sketch.
Well, I don't have the problem because I do it.
Well, you know, but you don't want to be I mean, you shouldn't have to do it all the time.
I know. But, you know, if you want a job done.
Well, that's true.
You know, the old saying.
Yeah. Anyway, chemtrails. I was in work there during the week in Blanchardstown in Dublin, and there's still a lot of chemtrails knocking about. And as we said from time to time, like, we know that what we're doing and what other people are doing is making a difference. But as Alan and I, we had a conversation yesterday, and we were saying, you know, we know that there are changes are happening, but until we see the chemtrails stopping, then, you know, I mean, that's kind of my bone of contention. When I see them stopping the spraying, then I'll know, like, maybe there is something changing. So yeah, let's just wait and see what happens. And the Dáil, that's the Irish kind of version of the Parliament. They had a massive bill written off there during the week for themselves in the bar.
Drinks bill. The
drinks bill. Mm. It was written off, and yeah, I mean, obviously, long live the taxpayer as far as they're concerned. So they basically win. They're the ones who are making all these farcical laws and basically penalising us all and ramming new taxes up our
Jackson.
Yeah, and down our throats, you know. But yet they're going in there and they're getting. Well, they're having a good old time at our expense. So yeah, I just wish there was something we could do about that. You know, have them working for us instead of drinking for us. We all know they can drink. As who was the other guy? Was it Biffo? Biffo, one of our politicians, Brian Cowan. Brian Cowan, yeah. I think a lot of times he turned up to places and he couldn't even put two words together, and he was representing Ireland. But yeah, maybe he couldn't hold his alcohol. I don't know.
There was a TD who actually suggested that they close the Dáil bar.
Really?
Yeah.
I bet they got rid of him.
Yeah, they probably will do.
Yeah, they should do. Anyway, that's it. I'm sorry. I apologise. Not too much on my agenda. How's your...
That's okay. Well, before we bring Simon and Mark in, just something that happened during the week, and I have to tell people this story, because I was doing my weekly shop in Super Value, and basically what you normally do, I had to go into the chemist to get the prescription, and... So what I normally do would, you know, have the trolley full of goods, bring it into the chemist, order the prescription, wait to get it, and then go to the car and load the car up with the messages. So I go into the chemist, and I'm waiting there for the prescription to come over, and I then turn around, I get my trolley and drive to the car, empty all the shopping in the car, go back to put the trolley in, and the euro's gone. Right? The euro that I put in to get the trolley is missing. So basically what happened was...
You called the guards.
Yeah, no, basically what happened was, right, someone in the chemist actually stole the euro.
No.
I'm telling you.
But how did they...
Right? There's a gadget he can get to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So someone came into the chemist while you were there.
Yeah.
With a gadget.
Yeah. There's gadgets you can get to do it. I'm saying you can make them yourself. They're easy to do, right?
So they robbed you a euro.
Yeah, they're easy to get. Now it's only a euro. I've no issues with euro, but the fact that somebody's sad enough to go and do something like that.
So come here, if anyone is in or near SuperValue in Kells and they find a euro on the ground, it's contact OYM.
It's very distinctive. Is it this one? I can see it now. Yeah, okay. Don't send in photos saying we found the euro. Is it this one on the ground? Okay, that's okay. That's it. But I just couldn't believe that somebody was so sad they'd have to go and do something like that. I mean, that's just really, it's unbelievable. But anyway, there you go. So let's move on. Let's move on. We won't. I was nearly going to cry there. I was getting upset with the euro, but no.
Don't dwell on Alan.
Okay, let's bring our guests on. Right, and we don't actually have a bio because we're going to let Simon and Mark talk about what they've been doing and what they've been up to, because obviously things change over time. So we'll bring them and have a chat. Good evening, Simon and Mark. How are you doing?
Hello. How you doing?
How are you doing, guys?
Hi, guys.
Brilliant stuff. Listen, thanks a lot for coming on the show. I'll leave it to you guys to give us a quick bio on what the two of you have been up to before we get into and start talking about things.
Okay, do you want to go?
After you, sir.
Okay. Well, as you know, we've actually been running You and Your Cash for the past 2 years. That kind of followed on from the White Rabbit Trust, which is available on YouTube. And this is the more kind of mainstream orientated show to get information out and to get people thinking and inspire people to do things. We've been, in fact, we're quite excited with a lot of the stuff that's actually coming. So, in terms of what have we been doing? Well, everything that we've been doing is available for people to check out on the show. So youandyourcash.com or insiders.youandyourcash.com.
I mean, there's some things we can't put in a public space.
True. And there's a lot that's we've filmed and we've prepared and it's ready to rock and roll and be put out there. But I guess what we've got coming in the immediate over the immediate weeks or so. On the 1st of Feb, we're going to be launching the Jedii Academy, aren't we?
We are, indeed, yes.
So that's where we're going to be seeking to achieve a number of things. Firstly, to take people to a deeper level of understanding and a deeper level of knowledge, or provide people with a deeper level of knowledge in terms of games play and skills, but also to create networks within that membership that work together. So we've actually had a lot of guests on the show. Yeah. Some really interesting guests who are involved in a whole myriad of different things. And part of the ethos we're trying to create and perpetrate with those guests is that we work together for mutual benefit.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
All right. And, it's a situation where if you were to translate that into business, way back when, maybe going off at a tangent, I could never understand in business why people get into business with the attitude of screwing each other over.
Yeah, it's always a bit weird, isn't it? There's plenty to go around. Why do they bother?
Yeah, exactly. And the whole point is that there is plenty to go around. If we just, if we look at the whole planet, if we look at, I suppose if you're talking in business terms, if you're talking about profit and revenue and this, that and the other, there's plenty to go around. I mean, how much do we need?
Well, can I just jump in there? You probably find that I have my business background, my corporate background, working in London, I would just put that down to greed and arrogance. Because, anybody who's half decent as a businessman will know that negotiating contracts and coming to agreements is all about what you're mutually prepared to accept on both parts. You find the kind of sweet spot where both of you are happy with the contract. That's kind of adult and common sense. But it's this kind of brash arrogance and greed from people who are just immature and have a bad attitude. And they're the people who kind of give everything else a bad name.
Well, then there's a lot of those people out there, unfortunately. And, certainly my experience. But, so as I say, part of the Jedii Academy is to propagate that ethos within the membership. But as I say, to take people to a deeper level of understanding and get people, active. but arm them with some really, powerful skills.
And top level tools as well.
Yeah, top level tools. So, that's one thing we've got coming on the 1st of February. That's when we're hoping to launch that.
Can I just jump in again? Sorry, because as you're talking, there are things coming into mind. I noticed that, because there's a couple of things we're going to be talking about here on the list, and we're happy to go through this few bits and pieces that you're going to be talking about, which is brilliant. I noticed that you spelled the Jedi with 2 I's. I take it that's done on purpose.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, firstly, everyone recognises, Jedi Knights, Star Wars, and so on and so forth. So, firstly, typed it differently, because, didn't, kind of want to tap it into the Star Wars thing, but didn't want to be treading on any toes by using the same spelling.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of main thing. But also, again, utilising the use of the little word I, the capstone, and things of that nature. So, just wanted to, I guess, play on that. It's just a play with the word, but the underlying ethos is exactly the same. It taps into the Star Wars thing, in as much as, you're utilising that force, energy, knowledge. You can use it for good. You can use it for bad. We would like to think that we're using it for something positive, for something good. Try and bring about some kind of positive change. And that's the underlying intention.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. People can relate to that and understand that. I know, and that makes sense having the 2 I's, because I know there was a lady, I don't know whether you heard the story about, she actually sued Red Bull. They say Red Bull gives you wings, and they had WINGS, and she actually sued them and won because it was false advertising. So if you notice, if you notice, Red Bull now was spelled with WIINGS or WIINGS.
I hadn't noticed, but I tell you what, good on her, because at the end of the day, I bought those chewing gums a while ago back. I can't remember which ones they were, or which ones they are, but when I blew on some glass, it didn't frost the glass. And when I sprayed some links on, I didn't have loads of women running after me.
Yeah, there's a big complaint on that one, and
I appreciate a lot of us can look at those adverts, as being for fun, but I think there is a serious, not trying to be anal about it, but there is a serious kind of underlying message to all of this, in as much as they do take the piss with some of these adverts.
Yeah, totally.
The relevance.
and they need to learn their lessons. But there is the extreme of the guy who was a hillbilly, and he decided to scratch his nose with a drill and took half his face off, and he was trying to sue the drill company because it said, do not use to scratch your nose on the box.
Yeah, now that is a pee take, because that's common sense, isn't it?
Exactly, it's common sense. But where do you draw the line with these? Some people, I suppose, at the end of the day, it's interpretation when they go to court. But listen, we'll crack on. So that's brilliant with the Jedii Academy, what you're doing. Let's get into cryptocurrencies. We have talked about this on the show, and there's kind of 2 camps regarding the cryptocurrencies. There's one camp, people are saying, oh yeah, this is the new, the new system where you can actually go in and you can get it down on your phone and you can do transactions, and don't go near a bank and all that kind of stuff. And that's great. But then you have the other side of saying, well, actually, the cryptocurrency is a cabal-based system that is purposely put in there because it's all about digital currency and getting rid of the physical cash. And the fact that the cryptocurrency is actually backed by nothing. Now, I know you're dealing with banks and fiat currency, and they can promise you the earth and not give it to you. But in general, that there is a level of insurance that the government, like the Polish, well, look, I'm saying it tongue in cheek, because we know what governments are like and we know what banks are like. But at least it's in the documentation that there's some kind of promise you get money back. But with crypto, there's nothing. So like this, we read an article last week about a website got hacked, a crypto website got hacked, and there's 64 billion taken from it. And this seems to now happen. There's another site I read during the week, I forget the name of the site, that was also hacked, and it was attacked. So I would be very concerned with the cryptocurrencies, but please enlighten me, and Steve, and let us know what your take is on it.
Do you want to go on this one?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's market. You've got whatever currency system you want to use, you're always going to have a risk You know, whether you're using fiat currency of any country, you're always going to have a risk. The thing about, if we start right from the beginning, if you're using a country's currency, you know, pounds over here, euros where you guys are, then your currency's only got the value that particular country and its financial institutions can support. Now, if you go out to something like the euro, that's spread across a whole number of countries. So if one country is having a hard time, its finances are going down the pan, that's not necessarily going to affect the strength or the usefulness of the euro, for instance. After all, at the moment, Spain's having a hard time. It's got high unemployment. There's, I won't say rapid inflation, but there is, but that doesn't affect all of Europe. If you spread that out over the world, like you can with a cryptocurrency, it's inherently more stable. Now, I take fully on board your point. You've got no proof that, someone's going to pay you. But there again, when you go down to the shop and you hand over a £10 note or a €10 note, that's not really proof of payment. It's just a promise to pay at the end of the day. And you can look on cryptocurrencies and those type of electronic transactions, exactly the same. It's a promise to pay.
Well, okay, let me jump in there for a minute, and I'm going to be devil's advocate here a little bit, right?
Please do.
Say we have an EMP, right? Say we have a power down situation, right? And we can't use computers, whatever. Where we live out in the country, it does happen, right? Power goes down for whatever reason, and we have a Hurricane Ophelia there a few weeks ago, hit Ireland, and power went down to a lot of places, rural places in Ireland. So we have a power down situation. Say it's an EMP or a CME or something, right? And that means that where computers don't work, our phones are down, everything's down, but I have a lot of cash in my hands, and I go down to the local shop and I go, look, it's a Dunkirk spirit, it's an emergency, we need to get some food. So I take out the fiat currency in my pocket. The people behind the counter will be so used to it because we're all brainwashed into thinking that it has value and everything else, even though we know it doesn't. But, the person behind the counter, they're probably not awake. So as far as they're concerned, you give them money, they give you the goods. That's the good thing with fiat currency. Although we know that if that was an indefinite period of time, after about 2 or 3 weeks, people would cotton on that it's not worth anything. So it wouldn't be. But at least you might get 2 or 3 weeks out of it. But at least you have something in your pocket.
Yeah, indeed.
Sure. Well, let's look at that. I mean, if you had a whole systems down, okay, for a start, yes, you're absolutely correct. And you're playing devil's advocate, but I'll let you know right now, I am very skeptical about, and I certainly was very skeptical about cryptocurrencies, right? And I'm not a big advocate of cryptocurrencies. What we're going to be talking about and what we're advocating on the show is a use of trading cryptocurrencies in order to make, for want of a better word, a profit. Okay, the kind of profit, or at least a bit more of a profit than you would get utilising a bank. Okay, but we'll come on to that in a sec. So let's say that the whole system's gone down, all the electrics have gone down. So you'll have no access to any of the cryptocurrencies because it's all electronically based. But the same will go for the bank.
Yeah.
And the same will go for the store making orders, probably, for replacement food in order to actually give it to you in exchange for fiat currency or your notes, right?
How many times have you been into a supermarket?
Yeah.
And no, their tills won't take cards or anything, so they close.
Exactly. Also, the staff probably won't get paid because that's all dealt with electronically. So the chances are there may not even be any staff manning the shop. However, you could use those paper notes, or you could use gold, silver, or something else to barter or exchange, or something else to barter and exchange. And that's something we're going to be coming on to with some of the shows in terms of acquiring money of substance. Yeah. All right? That's something we're going to be talking about in one of the shows in the next couple of weeks. It's going up. We've filmed it. It's edited. It's just got to go up, right?
Right.
Now, just to touch on this thing, I just want to emphasise the fact that, we released a show. It's up on the channel right now, and we were talking about cryptocurrencies. All right, or to be more precise, it's actually trading in cryptocurrencies. And I was interviewing Mark. Mark was explaining what cryptocurrencies are, and then he explained this particular platform that he'd been given a tip about that we've investigated and that we're both utilising. All right, and we're not recommending it. We've just put it out there, and if people want to follow suit, that's great. We've made the caveat that treat it as a gamble.
Yeah.
But if it's going to continue achieving what it's been achieving, then effectively what it can do is it can give people, as I mentioned, an ability to tap in to a little bit more, a much fairer slice of the kind of cake that bankers have been used to.
Indeed, yeah.
So, for example, on the show, I mean, I said to Mark on the show, if you're going to put, say, £10,000 in a bank account, what kind of interest rate can you get?
Peanuts. You might get 1% if you're lucky.
Right, a year, right? So if you're seeking investment from Dragon's Den and they're going to be looking at a company, or looking at investing in a company, what kind of percentage return on equity are they going to be looking at in a year?
Well, they like to go 25% and above.
Yeah, 25% return on equity. Using this platform, what kind of return can you get on your money if you've got $10,000 or more to invest?
You get 1%, but that's every day.
Well, I'm glad you said invest, because now I will say it. I've said it on the show before, and I'll say it again. I am not an expert in cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin, anything like that, because there was somebody that mentioned on one of our YouTube streams that they said, well, you don't seem to know a lot of it, and I said, well, yeah, I'm admitting it, but I'm just looking at it from a logical point of view rather than what is cryptocurrency. You know, I'm just kind of saying, right, I've got 10,000 quid here, or I've got $3,000. Can I afford to invest that in something which potentially, might benefit me, or else it might go down?
If you can't, then you shouldn't do it.
We look upon it as, if you like, I'll use the term bet on cryptocurrency.
Yeah, that's what I do. That's the way I see it. You see, I'd say it's a bit. To me, it's like putting a bet on and be prepared to lose it just in case.
Yeah.
I mean, but this, but understanding how this particular platform operates, and it's not the only one, as I understand it. But just think of let me just explain the way that the British banking system works, okay? Because some people have looked at some of these platforms and they've said it's a Ponzi scheme, and I must admit I chuckled. Because right, a Ponzi scheme. Let me explain what a Ponzi scheme is for those that are listening and don't understand. A Ponzi scheme is typically where new investors are actually paying the reward to the old or the earlier investors. All right. Now, let me just explain how the British banking deposit system works. 3% of all bank deposits are held in the form of bank notes. Okay, so over here on Blighty, you've got the Bank of England, beautifully designed notes. 3% of all deposits are held in that format, right? Now, someone goes down to the bank today and puts in a deposit of cash. Right, those banknotes. And then Mrs. Miggins comes along later and makes a withdrawal. Now, in effect, that is a Ponzi scheme because there's only 3% of deposits are held in banknotes. So new depositors are actually providing the ability for old depositors to withdraw their funds. And so the cash or the notes continue to circulate. That's the theory. But if too many people go down, it collapses and the Ponzi scheme collapses.
Which is called a run on the bank.
It's called a run on the bank. It is a Ponzi scheme. Now, what makes me laugh is when you understand how these particular platforms that we're referring to, and the particular platform we're referring to, when you understand how this works, okay, you'll understand why banks don't like it. But what I don't understand is why some people are slating it and calling it a Ponzi scheme. Maybe it is a Ponzi scheme. I've seen no evidence that it's a Ponzi scheme, right? And in fact, if you understand how it can make the profits that it's making and how it can pay out what it's paying, you'd have to come to the conclusion that they are making an absolute fortune behind the scenes. They're just cutting us in to a little bit more than what we otherwise would have gotten, right? But in effect, look, how much profit does a bank make from every loan that it grants? Percentage-wise?
Well, you normally make, between 6, 7, 8%, something like that?
Incorrect. They make near infinite percentile return.
Well, because they tell us that.
Because they didn't lend anything.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Well, it doesn't exist.
So there was no loss.
Yeah.
So therefore, all things being equal, ignoring the cost of the staff, right, and let's pretend that they make the money from thin air to pay the staff. Well, they certainly pay them digitally, so that's created from thin air.
Yeah.
So they're actually incurring no expenditure. They lend nothing. The moment a customer pays 1 penny back, that is an infinite percentile return.
It is.
Right. So these people are making infinite % return, profit, every day. every day.
Yeah, I totally understand that, yeah.
Right, great. The platform we're talking about is paying out 1% return. Every day. And what you're doing is you are lending them your funds. Now, when you make a deposit with Lloyds Bank or Barclays, yes or no, are you lending them the cash? Yes.
Well, yeah, you would be, yeah. You would be.
According 1954, Lord Goddard, the notion that a customer has money in the bank is completely incorrect, because the moment that the customer deposits money in the bank, the only party that has money in the bank is the banker, because the moment that the customer deposits money in the bank, the money at once becomes the property of the banker. The relationship between banker and customer is that of debtor and creditor. So people who have got savings accounts and current accounts have actually loaned the bank money. They just didn't bother charging the bank a good interest rate for the use of the money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. With this platform, they are providing you with a bigger slice of the cake. And behind the scenes, they are making, well,
even bigger slice.
We can only guess. But if you look at some of the technologies around, I mean, Mark, do you want to explain these bots? The micro trading bots?
Micro trading bots, yeah. This particular platform, like most of these platforms, uses what they call volatility software, which basically looks for changes in value between currency pairs. So you might have the US dollar, for instance, as your base currency, and you might buy and sell other currencies against it. So let's say the euro is looking like it's going up, so that the bot will make a small purchase, maybe a couple of £100 worth or a couple of $100 worth. It'll hold it for maybe only just a few minutes. It'll let the price go up and then it will sell it again. But you do that over a whole number of different currency pairs, and you do it several thousand times a day, then you're going to make a whole lot of little trades that add up to quite a huge profit. Now that's just a bot that you can buy on the internet. You can set it up on your computer and it will run away quite happily every day. You put that in the hands of somebody who's got the ability to make a really intelligently put together bit of software that is the bot, and then knows how to use it because they've got the experience. They're obviously going to make a far greater profit than people like you and I would, because they've got experience and the know-how. Now, this is what most of these platforms that will do this for you have in the background. They've got very knowledgeable people who put the software together, and they've got even more knowledgeable people who keep an eye on it and oversee the trading it does every day. So that's why they're making huge profits.
Okay, so I have a question for you on the crypto.
Yeah.
Apparently does a limited amount. Some people are saying 7 million, other people are saying 21 million. And that's it. Does a finite amount of cryptocurrencies out there. So all these other companies that are jumping on the bandwagon offering cryptos, are they just allowing you to tap into the already currency that's there? It's just like you can, I suppose, you've got different, well, what's the best way to look at it? Different companies offering facilities to access the same cryptocurrencies.
No, in essence, what you've got is you've got groups of people who've decided to start a cryptocurrency. They've developed a program that calculates an algorithm that each of the currency units has to fit, if I can put it that way. So let's say you've got an algorithm and you can put a string of, I'll keep it simple, 25 numbers and letters into it. And if they are the right numbers and letters, they'll always give you an answer 1. Yeah. So you put it in and the answer comes out as 1. If it comes out as anything else, that's not a valid number.
Okay, so, but the fact that you have Bitcoin, and then you have, another XYZ company doing. So all these companies are bringing out their own cryptocurrencies. So
Indeed, yeah.
So the whole idea of there's a limit of 21 million could be only a limit of 21 million of Bitcoins, but there could be another 21 million of somebody else's cryptocurrency.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Right. So so the market's beginning to get saturated then with cryptocurrency companies offering cryptocurrencies.
It is, yeah. And what will happen is that, the various different cryptocurrencies have different strengths. For instance, Bitcoin is like the US dollar. It's been around quite a long time. It's well known. It's a fairly predictable thing to use, and there are a lot of quite large companies using it now. You've got others that are the newer generations of cryptocurrency that work a lot faster, so that when you want to verify a purchase, it's done a lot quicker, which is important for people who are doing online trading, for instance. They want their payments and receipts to be done as quickly as possible. You've got others that are even more secure. In fact, there are a couple now that are considered unbreakable.
Are these cryptocurrencies cross-platform? Like, can you trade Bitcoin for Joe Blogg's cryptocurrency? Or
yes, you can. Yeah. There are plenty of sites on the internet. In fact, there are obviously tied to the internet that will do trades for you. Okay.
Because I was just wondering whether that was possible, about whether you could cross over. So you have Bitcoin selling to, I don't know the companies out there, but if they can actually swap they do the transactions between themselves, then that opens up the market a bit more.
It does. You can use the analogy of if you're trading in foreign exchange. So you're as I said earlier, using dollars to buy pounds or euros or denarii or whatever they happen to be. You can use Bitcoins to buy Ethereum or Dash or IOTA or any number of there's 1,000 at the moment. There's over 1,200 different cryptocurrencies out there at the moment, and there's more coming on the line. But what will happen is, just like we've seen over the last, sort of 100 years or so, there are certain currencies that become the de facto for international trade. I think we'll find that will happen with a lot of the cryptocurrencies. I'm guessing that Bitcoin is going to be one of those that sticks. I expect, another one, Ethereum is going to be one that sticks. Dash will probably stick. Now, Dash is an interesting one. I'll come back to that in a minute. And there'll be others, things like, I think it's IOTA, that has just been taken on board by Microsoft. So they're going to start using it on their trading platforms. And in fact, because of that, the value of IOTA is going up and up and up. So, if people are looking to, I'll use the term loosely, invest in cryptocurrencies, that's probably one to watch.
Okay, well, we need to move on to the other subjects, because I know we have a bit to talk about, but something that, like, we were told from a higher level up was that certain elites, the elites as you know them, you know how the food chain works, are basically their financial, the river of money that they were relying on, which were called the collateral accounts, have been closed, and they're struggling now for finance, and they're using certain methods globally to try and get some funding to keep their system afloat. And one of the things they do is they create a disaster and they set up a fund like Las Vegas or Haiti and all that kind of stuff, and people pay it, and then that money never gets, because apparently there was millions funded for Haiti and only 6 houses were built, apparently. So if you put that kind of process into Bitcoin, wouldn't it be ideal for them, the elites, to say, right, what we're going to do is we're going to set this system, we're going to push our own Bitcoin, or push Bitcoin, and we're going to sell these digital coins to people, and they'll put real money in, and we'll give them these digital coins, and we'll just pull the plug, and then we'll have real cash, or real money, and we will be left with, something on their computer which has no value. Now,
well, again, you say put real money in. Do you want to?
Well, Well, look,
define the word real?
Okay. I'm saying in this world where everybody, a lot of people, the people who are awake understand fiat currency, and it has no value. But the majority of the population in the world believe that currency has a value. So, as far as in their mind, that has a value, then it has a value. If I go down to my local shop and I give somebody a tenner, it doesn't matter what I say to them in their mind, because they grew up with the fact that that money has value.
No, true.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I wasn't trying to be facetious there.
No.
But basically what you've got two types of people. You've got people that are buying into it to make a quick buck because of the rise in the price of Bitcoin, right? Yeah. And those people are taking just as much a risk as if they were investing in ICI, British Telecom shares, whatever, right?
Going down the dogs.
And, or going, well, they should be making, it's more of a sure bet than going down the dogs and putting it on a greyhound. But at the end of the day, they are gambling, right?
Yeah.
It's just a different type of gambling. Now, what we're talking about is a platform whereupon you lend the money to the platform, which then trades in cryptocurrencies. They take the profit, the bulk of the profit, and they cut you in for a slice of the cake. The slice of the cake just happens to be mammoth compared to what you can get with your savings account down at Lloyd's or wherever.
Yeah.
Okay, this is 1% a day. This is doubling your money. If we talk about flat interest rates and we ignore compounding, the effects of compounding, this is doubling your money every 3 to 4 months.
I was just about to say that. Is that compounded?
£10,000 becomes £80,000 within a year.
Right. Okay.
Right. Now, £1,000 with the effect of compounding becomes just under £20,000 within the space of a year. Now, the point is, okay, what you're doing is you're lending the money to the company. You're not actually investing or holding any Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies yourself. You've lent money to the company. Well, now, of course, the risk is,
Don't tits up.
well, the company could go tits up. Or perhaps, what if there's a dodgy director? Well, what if there's a dodgy director over working for HBOS who, for example, collapses a load of companies, maybe picks on Noel Edmonds and takes his businesses away from him and decides to invest the money in prostitutes and yachts and this, that and the other? Oh, but that's already happened.
Yeah, well...
Now, the fact of the matter is that there's no accounting unless you know these people. And even if you know people, how well do you know them? Some people don't even know themselves. So the point is, anyone, given the right circumstances, perhaps, could be forced into a situation where they do something they maybe shouldn't.
Yeah.
How far they go and how dodgy they go, I guess depends on the person, right? On the man or woman. So the point is, maybe some people are more susceptible and more willing to go that extra mile down the dodgy road than others. Maybe some would never tread that path. The fact of the matter is we don't know. The point is, as a gamble, if you treat it as a gamble, and if you are prepared to risk what you put in, we're not saying go bank your house on it. We're not saying anything like that. Do your due diligence. If you don't like it, leave it alone. If you are prepared to put something in and lose it, look, the way that things work with me, I'll be honest. When I get cash in my hand, which is very rare, but when it happens, it's kind of easy come, easy go. It doesn't stay in my hand for long, right? And so when I did something for a couple of people, did a favour for a couple of people. They gave me a couple of $100, and I stuck it in as a gamble. All right.
Okay.
That's what I did. Now, because I was prepared to lose it, I thought, well, easy come, easy go, stuff it. But at the end of the day, if it turns into something big, well, then brilliant.
How long do you have to wait for to see some movement on that?
Well, let's put it this way. When you are lending money to that company, depending on what you put in, you have to leave it in for between 120 to 299 days. Hence, the company is stable in terms of the lending that it's taken from you.
Yeah.
It's not just like an overnight loan that it has to find the money to pay you back. You're lending it for a period of time. It's operating like a treasury department of a bank.
I know where you're coming from, because I was involved in something like this when I was in London, where businesses who wanted loans without going through the banks, they had to. This is all legitimate, by the way, just in case the taxman is listening in. Basically, where they wanted loans, but they had to pay a higher rate of interest to get the money quick. And I was an investor into this system where I provided a certain, a few thousand into the system, and that then the investor got the money and they pay a higher rate of interest, and I got a higher rate of return. The only problem is that when I got out, about 2 months later, the sister who was actually involved in that scheme went and screwed the guy who started it, and he had known this guy for 30 years. Now he's been signed off. He was debarred as a solicitor. But imagine knowing somebody for 30 years as a friend, and he goes and screws you. And I was lucky. I got out 2 months just before that happened, because But I know where you're coming from with that system.
Well, as they say, you've no friends in business.
Well, this is it, yeah. I mean, yeah, and there's loads of examples of that. But listen, lads, crypto is a show in itself, but I know there's other stuff that we want to get talking about, especially the mortgage side.
We've put the link on in the Skype chat if you want to give that to people. It's youandyourcash.com/OYM, especially for you guys.
Brilliant stuff. That's great. Well, listen, do you want to just finish off just wrapping up the crypto and we'll get into the mortgage side?
Well, I guess, all that can be said is, do your due diligence. I was very skeptical about it.
Yeah.
We've done quite a bit of research. We've tapped into people that, Mark's associated with that have done extensive research on it. And, all I can say is I liked it enough to give it a bash. Let's put it this way. I don't bother betting on the lottery because I've got more chance of landing on the moon. So, even if you take your year's worth of lottery tickets and put it into a crypto of your choice, for example, then perhaps you're going to, you've got more of a chance of getting a win.
A decent profit. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we let the users, that's my IT side. We let our listeners decide for themselves what you want to do, and I'm sure there's people out there, on the crypto. Right, let's get into, I do have a story here I want to read out. Maybe I should read this out first, and then we'll get into the mortgage side, because this is quite important for people living in Ireland, and it's the state of our court system, and then maybe you can come in. I'm going to give you the problem, and then maybe you'll be able to give us the solution. But it was a story that was sent over by one of our listeners, actually. And he said that while attending Trim Court on Wednesday, Trim Court is in County Meath, which is the county we're in, December 13th, to report on the court behaviour and actions. That soon turned into a major shock for me as a trainee journalist. One case I must highlight that stood out clearly from all cases called on the day was that of a County Meath man who was defending an alleged claim by a bank. The Meath man arrived suited and booted and dressed like a well-groomed solicitor. This man appeared to have a lot of paperwork and knowledge with him. His case was called. The case opened for the 8th time. First off was the bank pleading to the judge to adjourn the case again at the last hour, to allow the bank more time to deal with the very, very in-depth paperwork submitted by the County Meath man, who it became very clear was just another lay litigant with a very sharp brain. A very polished man who quickly asserted his rights by directing the judge to his paperwork. Nobody knew what was in the Meath man paperwork, but it was clear to see whatever the Meath man had presented and submitted to the court had sent waves through the judicial admin court. The judge, as normal in these eviction cases, was ignoring the rules of her own court to support this bank, which was clearly in some form of trouble, due to the paperwork served upon them by the Meath man. The judge attempted to grant an adjournment to the bank again for the 8th time, yet the same bank had urged the Trim Court judge just some 12 weeks previous to force the case to go ahead. The Meath man was calm and very direct in his address to the court. He explained to the judge that the bank was completely out of control with its previous past directors and CEO masking and failing to address any proof of evidence when asked to produce some documents. The Meath man had written to all the bank staff many times requesting some information on their alleged claim. The Meath man had also written to all new board of directors and CEO of the said bank, giving the bank time to honour the past failures of the bank's previous management. After several letters and many attempts to have the bank furnish the Meath man with documents, all attempts were refused, neglected and ignored by all bank staff and boards of directors. The judge was addressed by the Meath man once more when he pointed out to the judge that she had now breached and broken many court rules, which the Meath man explained and pointed out. The Meath dwelling owner pointed out to the judge that she was clearly denying the man fair justice under the 1924 Court of Justice Act and was merely siding with the bank. The Mead man then made it clear that the judge has no legal standing jurisdiction in the matter and had, like the banks, now ignored every request made of both the bank and the court itself now. The judge got angry with the Mead man in the hope he would back off, but instead the Mead man stood his ground. He has broken no court rules. The bankers and the judge got exposed. The judge jumped from her chair and left the courtroom after the Mead man has exposed both parties for breaching and breaking many of the court rules. The judge quickly fled the courtroom as the Mead man proclaimed, "Is this an Irish court of law, or am I in a British Crown registered court?" The judge kept moving quickly back to her chambers and disappeared, leaving the Mead man without direction or any form of redress or justice. Speaking with the Mead man later, he explained that he had accepted an invite to the local courts 7 previous times. On each visit, anything he had asked for was denied by the courts. He explained that then noticed by visiting the court on other days to watch the court in action, he was horrified to see the judges and registrar totally ignore homeowners requested, which they are 100% entitled to do under EU law. The Mead man explained after his 8th visit, "I won't be returning to this hell of injustice. People are crazy to enter trim courts. It's a farce of a legal court. It's also not a court of justice. Nobody gets fair, true justice in a trim court." When asked what next, the Mead man replied, "I have closed my business down for the past 5 years to take this matter into my own hands. I owe this bank zero. Now I find myself sucked into some eviction crisis and can understand why people would take their own lives. We live in a country which has no courts or of justice system. Money runs the outcome of most and every case before these courts." Now, what do you think of that?
Well, we could probably talk about that for about 3 or 4 hours. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns speaking blind about it, right?
Yeah.
Look, in the first instance, what I would say is that with every single mortgage, okay, and I've seen quite a few from the Republic, okay, you got to look for the power of attorney. You see, the thing is, when the bank, this is in my opinion, when the bank is suing you for repossession, who's suing who?
Well, how can they repossess something they haven't possessed in the first place?
Right, hold on. Right, okay. There's a few bits here. So first and foremost, who's suing who? Well, I would suggest that you are suing you. The bank is actually acting as you under power of attorney, and they are suing you. Which is in
the terms and conditions in the agreement when you sign the mortgage.
Right?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, the terms are you're going to pay X, Y, Z for however many years, subject to an interest rate fluctuation, blah, blah, blah. The conditions are the conditions under which that those terms are going to be applied, right?
Yeah.
And those conditions are not in your favour. When we talk about repossession, what we're talking about is repossessing the mortgage, right, or the security. Now, the security is the mortgage paperwork. Yeah. And so in order to repossess it, they merely pass it from right hand to left hand. They were possessing it, and now they repossess it in a different department.
Yeah.
Right. We're not talking about the bricks and mortar, okay? The bricks and mortar is nothing to do with a mortgage.
Okay.
But the illusion, the hypnosis, is that it is. That's the icing on the cake for the bank. Because they get to sell that real property, that bricks and mortar, that substance, and they get to, pass it off to their friends, maybe sell it on the cheap, then, sell it for, or auction it off on the cheap, sell it for more on the open market, all take a backhander, and the game begins again. Likewise, they still then keep hold of the mortgage documentation. That's a security in its own right, and they've maybe sold that off already, pocketed those monies, and hence they've kept all of your repayments, your repeated process of payment, the repayments, they've kept all of that, which is pure profit.
Well, obviously we have been dealing with securitization over here, and people have challenged the banks time and time again, but because the justice system is corrupt, they always side with the banks. So even if you go in with the book of law and you follow all the rules and regulations, as you heard in this case, they did not follow court rules.
Well, the problem that we've got, don't get me wrong, is it corrupt, right? Well, yes, to an extent, right? I mean, it depends how you're defining corrupt. It depends whether we understand the true game that's being played. Have we been tricked? Absolutely. With regards to money, with regards to banking, I wouldn't trust, as an ex-banker speaking, for anyone that's not aware of, my existence prior to this date, as an ex-banker speaking, I wouldn't trust a banker with an orange, let alone anything else. So at the end of the day, have we been tricked? Yes. Have we been misled? Yes. Is there fraud, theft and deception and everything else going on? Skullduggery? Yes, absolutely. But with regards to, the courts, I think it depends on the individual judge, right? And I think these people, to some extent, I'm not saying they're all whiter than white. There's certainly some that are more corrupt than others, and there's certainly maybe one or two that went into the industry thinking it was something other than what it is, and maybe they try to do their best, but they are a little bit handcuffed, right? Or doing things with a gun to their head, metaphoric gun to their head. The point is that when we say that, they're not complying with their rules and this, that and the other, one key word, and again, it all comes down to the words. So, for example, if he asked the court, well, that's doing the wrong thing. If you ask someone, they can say yes or no. So if the judge says no when asked, depending on what this guy did, I don't know, wasn't there, but, from the write-up from the journalist, if he asked for something, well, then the judge has the right to say yes or no. That's like someone asking me out on a date. I've got the right to say yes or no. And the fact they asked me 9 times or 8 times doesn't mean I've now got to say yes. Yeah. Right? So it very much depends on what was actually happening, right? I appreciate, we've got a lot of opinions going on. We've got the journalist's opinion, which may or may not be a qualified opinion. We've got perhaps the lay litigant's opinion, which may or may not be a high level knowledgeable opinion. Certainly what I would have suggested, in the one, if you're having that kind of instance in court, one of the most powerful mechanisms I've used and tested myself, with success, is court of record. It's court of record.
Okay, tell us what that is.
Okay, well, again, perhaps a show in its own right, but, a court of record is where effectively, you are just going in and maintaining the record. All right. In other words, let me put it this way. I went into, when you were reading that out, I was having flashbacks to my experience with Santander, which a lot of people out there may be familiar with, right? And that's about to hopefully come to a bit of a head. Okay, I can't go into it too much because courts are potentially going to be involved, but this is all coming to a head now. And I'm confident of being the victor. However, very frequently what happened is that, in one instance, what happened was that I popped into a Santander office, and I made a number of phone calls, and when I wanted to obtain the copies of those, the CCTV footage or the telephone calls, whether members of staff had intervened and destroyed it, which I think they had, whether they were just withholding it from me, which I think they were, or whether it was never recorded in the first place, which I don't think happened, they weren't allowing me to have it. So what was I doing? I was relying on their record keeping.
Yeah.
What I didn't do was maintain and construct and create my own record.
Okay, you there? Hello? Simon? I think we've gone quiet there for some reason.
Can you hear us?
Oh, we lost you there for a few seconds.
Oh, I think that was an internet connection there. So this isn't I don't know where you got up to, but this isn't something which you can go in being powered up on adrenaline.
No, you've got to go in cool, calm.
You have to know. It's like knowing yourself. You have to be so confident and calm and collected. You have to know in your own being that what you are doing will work and will provide a success, right? You just have to go through the motions of doing it. And that is maintaining a record and keeping a record of everything that is actually being said and done and so on and so forth. Now, in terms of the way that, with regards to court of record, you can, in that court of record, you can bring whatever law form you want into that, okay? And you can, if you wish, take if you're facing repossession or you're facing a claim of some type, you can take the higher ground and, go back to nature, as it were, and act in your natural capacity, which is that of man or woman. Right?
Okay.
And, funnily enough, in the recent seminar which we conducted with regards to the birth certificate and the bonds, we showed everyone the legislation which just proves that when you're ever facing certainly a criminal matter, indictment, you're doing so in your corporate capacity.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
So you in legal land, in that governmental land, and that's certainly the game that we're playing with regards to these corporations, you are undoubtedly, we've proven it, you are undoubtedly doing so in that corporate capacity, and you can take a step back from that because you don't have to wear that hat all the time, so you can take a step back from that, and by convening a court of record, which you don't need permission to do, you just do it. You don't need permission, and a lot of people seek reassurance, or they seek agreement, or they seek permission in order to do some of these things. You don't need permission.
Is this a judicial process or something? Do you have to tell them?
No.
It's just your record keeping.
It's just your record keeping, because the point is, none of these people will ever stand up to say that the contents of any of their files, their file notes, their information, their screen notes, any of it is true. Never, ever.
Yeah.
It's a fact. That's a fact that I use to wipe off debt for people. Okay. And I've done it very successfully for the last however many years. All right. But it's part of the games play which I utilize, and it's a fact I depend upon and rely upon and confidently go out, and I don't mention it, but I go out and I march straight into them, and I know in the back of my mind that whatever they produce, I know that I can completely undermine, because no one is ever going to come out and say that it's true. Ever.
Just by asking that simple question.
So therefore, everything they produce is hearsay. So what you have to do, and there's a couple, there's some people on the internet that explain how these things work. In fact, we may well be producing our own, guidance at some point in time as to how to convene these courts of record. But the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of information out there that you can look at. You convene a court of record, you send them copies, you keep the originals, and you just make sure that you stay in true character the whole way through. You don't get drawn into playing their game. And if you play it right from the beginning, I mean, I've done this with regards to a charging order, which was placed on property, which just happened to be in my name at the time, and that was from the official receiver, who had employed the Treasury solicitor, who had hired an internal lawyer, who had in turn hired a barrister to come against me, and I won.
Very good.
Right? So the point is, it does work. But you've got to use the right tool. We've got lots of tools, and, I'm not trying to, hats off to anyone that has the guile and the balls to go in and stand up against what is effectively
killing machine.
Yeah.
David and Goliath. It is David and Goliath.
Yeah, absolutely. And they will, they are just an energy sucking machine. And, for anyone that is prepared to even give it a go, good on you. I really take my hat off to these people, right, that do that. But by the same token, having gone through it, and maybe people have to learn, and you only learn when you fall. That's something that I've learned myself. You have to fall down and graze the knee in order to learn how to ride the bike, right? And sometimes you have to go through a process of elimination, of trying different things to see what works for you. But certainly I can say that, a court of record is perhaps one of the most powerful tools which are available to you. Obviously, with regards to a mortgage, the sad thing is so many of us have needed to acquire a mortgage debt, or what we believe to be a mortgage debt, in order to obtain a property to call home, right? Had we actually preempted the problem and played things right, we could have perhaps, obtained property with lump sums without the need for an alleged mortgage debt.
Well, if we actually paid the actual value of the house rather than 3 times the value, we probably would have been able to do it. I mean, that's the problem, isn't it?
This is where we've been kind of encouraged, or it's been made available to us. Easy credit, get it now, rather than sticking around with mum and dad, perhaps rather than working as a family. Something we spoke about in the birth certificate seminar was the fact that, a lot of these elite families, they all live on the family estate, the landed family estate, right? They all live together. big properties, yes. So they've got a bit of space. They don't all actually have to live in each other's underpants, as it were. Although I bet some of them do.
It's probably like Downton Abbey, you know.
But they probably see each other at lunch and dinner, maybe. But the fact of the matter is that they stick together. Now, a lot of us peasants, what we've done is we've fallen into the trap of chasing the dream, where we all go out and we try to obtain the nice big property on our own. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but you're reinventing the wheel. You're making things difficult for yourself as opposed to pooling your funds. And I know a lot of Asian families, have got the kind of...
They work together.
They work together,
yeah.
Right? Now, I appreciate you can't choose your families, you choose your friends, but, if you look beyond that, if we look at some of the dramatizations and the way in which the elitists are portrayed, certainly they put family as very high up on the list of priorities, and they work together. So why are we not utilizing what is staring us right in the face, right? Now, we haven't done that. We can't go back in time and change it. We can only maybe adjust what we do in future and try to create those family ties. And again, you can't choose your family. So, you can choose your friends, and maybe depending on how you define family, you might treat friends as family, which is something we're trying to develop.
Well,
part of Jedii Academy.
I'll tell you what happened in Ireland over here during the week. I don't know whether you've seen this, right, Steve? Two guys, they weren't gay, just two friends, right? And one friend wanted to leave his property to his mate, right? Yeah. And he was told how much inheritance tax they'd have to pay. So what they ended up doing is getting married. Now, they weren't a couple, but to avoid the inheritance tax, they just married each other. Civil partnership. Genius, yeah.
Genius.
That's actually quite common in France.
You've got to play the game.
Yeah. Play the game.
At the end of the day, these guys, look, where we've all gone wrong is that we're playing a game. We didn't realise we're playing a game, and so therefore we've kind of ignored the rules, right? Now, okay, really, we've ignored the rules. Something inside told us to ignore the rules, because really that's not a game we should be playing, and it's not actually a game that really truly affects us, but we've allowed it to affect us. So now we're starting to learn the rules. So once you learn the rules, play the game.
Yeah. And what about, this judge quickly fled the courtroom as the Mead man proclaimed, is this an Irish court or a British Crown registered court? I mean, when a judge flees the court, there's something in the law that's making a statement there, and she comes back out 10 minutes later, and it's a new court system reset, apparently. That's what we've heard.
Potentially. Potentially. Look, that's potentially. They're certainly getting out of a difficult situation to even, perhaps even reset their mind so that they can come back in because they're getting flustered. What I would say, me personally, and I don't mean anything by the personally bit, but me, in my opinion, when I've gone in, I used to go in and I used to enjoy giving the judges a bit of a tough time and getting them really squirming. I really used to like it, but I didn't necessarily achieve that much. I got off on it. It made me smile, but I didn't necessarily get anywhere.
Didn't get the results you wanted.
No. And, I said, a little while ago about Court of Record. When I went in and played Court of Record, I had the particular judge I was dealing with at the time, I had them in a situation, a major situation, and I let that party off the hook. And that party knows I let them off the hook. And that was a grace and favour which was repaid many times over. Now, I don't know. I don't know who the judge is. I don't know them. I don't know what they're like. I can't foresee the future. I can't say that you should have done this and this is what would have happened. I can only give, my opinion based on my experience. But rather than actually, by saying all this kind of stuff out in public, as it were, it's humiliating the judge. Now, from a human nature point of view, if you humiliate someone, what are they likely to do to you? What's their reaction likely to be?
Well, they'd probably go on the attack.
There you go. So, the point is, as mad and as angry and as frustrated and perhaps as right and just as that was, it was perhaps the wrong thing to do in that forum, because what you're going to do is you're just going to get their backs up. And, it's like anything. You can say to someone, You know, and I've been in the situation myself. You can say to someone, you can have all the facts on your side. You can actually have it there, right in front of you. And I've experienced this for 10 years with Santander staff, right? I've had the glaringly bloody obvious right in front of them. But because they've got a bee in their bonnet about me, because I've humiliated some of them, perhaps, not necessarily intending to, but I have, they just whitewash it. They override it. They just ignore it. Okay, now it doesn't make it right, doesn't make it just, doesn't make it correct, doesn't make it fair. But that's human nature. So you have to play it in a way which allows them it allows them a back door. You know, if you corner a lion, they'll come out fighting, and you're likely to get a few scratches at the very least. You allow them a back door, and you allow them to retire gracefully or think up an excuse, and the chances are you may get what you want because they realise that you're a tough adversary and that you're not going to be messed with. But they know that they've got a back door through which they can leave and come up with an excuse. For example, lots of companies will say, oh, yes, you know, well, we'll waive that fee as a goodwill gesture. Yeah. You know it's not a goodwill gesture. I know it's not a goodwill gesture. But it makes them save face, or it allows them to save face. It makes them feel good about themselves, and you get the result you want.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Sorry?
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah? So the point is, you know, there's lots of ifs, buts, maybes. Okay. One thing I would say is that, you know, with regards to the power of attorney and the securitization, you know, for anyone that looks over on you and your cash, we've got a mortgage challenge which just happens to focus in on that facet. Yeah. It's a mortgage challenge where we've tied up with a company, or certainly we've promoted this particular company. They've utilized some of the research that you know we've done. Certainly it was completed over on White Rabbit. And they've taken it a stage further. They've got some high-level players in there. And the solution that they've presented to us and that they are presenting to people is not just a solution that talks about going in and whipping the banker's backside. It's actually a political solution to some extent. And it's actually a solution which doesn't cost the banks a penny. Because if the banks have sold the mortgage, wiping off the mortgage debt doesn't cost the banker 1 penny.
Yeah. Okay.
They already sold the mortgage debt, right?
Yeah, of course.
So it's not going to cost them a penny. So the solution, okay, which they are presenting is one which they're working, believe it or not, they're working very closely with the Ministry of Justice. They're actually on the panel of advisors now to the Ministry of Justice because such is the level of expertise that they've demonstrated to the Ministry of Justice. The Ministry of Justice have been unable to argue or counter-argue the legal argument that they have put forward with regards to the issue, the very narrow issue that they are raising with regards to securitization. All right? And the Ministry of Justice have now, in seeing the level of expertise that's behind this challenge, have actually placed the company in question onto their panel so that any new legislation which is proposed is actually run by this company for their feedback.
Excellent. Excellent. And is this going to be a change in the system regarding securitization and what's happening at the moment with people being evicted?
Let's put it this way. In terms of securitization, I would have thought if the challenge is successful and they're looking to issue, I think they're looking to be in position to make their first move on a class or group action this Christmas. Right, and the company in question is Lloyds Bank, right? Really. So I think they've got enough cases to actually move forward against Lloyds, and of course they don't want to go to court. No. They don't want precedent. The MOJ doesn't want precedent. What they want is they want a nice, confidential, private agreement which can be signed off. Now, would this, if successful, see the end of securitization? I would have thought eventually it's going to have to, because, or certainly in the way that they're doing it, they're going to have to either be more open, they're going to have to change some of the things that they do with regards to land registry perhaps. Something's going to have to change if they're going to continue doing it. Securitization in itself is a misnomer. It's not what it's portrayed to be. Anyone that understands how money works will understand that securitization is just a very nice word. The process which is described is it's just a whitewash. It's a mask for what's really happening behind the scenes with regards to the creation of money.
Okay, well, we have a central bank, and we have central bank rules that the banks have to go by. Now, they're not legal rules, but they're rules and legislation by the central bank. And one of the things is that that banks are obliged to tell their customer that if they're selling on the property, selling on the actual mortgage to a third party, which is obviously what securitization is. But nobody that we know of has ever got a letter in the post from the bank saying, by the way, we're going to be selling on your mortgage to this company, and we just thought we'd let you know.
Okay, well, look, thinking outside the box, under the power of attorney, what if they waived the right to know that?
Well, we have to look at the agreement, don't we? I mean, the power of attorney is on the agreement, and we have to look at the small print to see if that's on there.
Well, look, this is the thing. They're not specific about it. They're very vague about it. But what they'll state, I mean, for example, at Santander, they state in the conditions that the power of attorney exists so that they can do whatever the borrower needs to do in order to make the account work. Now, in order to make it work the way that I want it to work, what if I deemed it appropriate, using the power of attorney, to waive the need for me to tell you that what I'm doing under the power of attorney?
Yeah.
Now, I don't agree with that.
It's very vague.
But I'm just thinking out. So I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a dodgy pirate-esque banker who will who would sell his mother to make a buck. Now, at the end of the day, what kind of things would they or could they potentially come up with? Well, I've just thought of that off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Now, I know that in Santander's securitization 400-page dossier, which they put out to tender these things to potential investors, right? Corporate investors and corporate purchasers. They actually state in there that they do need the consent of the borrower to do all of this, but that's not a concern because they've already got it. They must be talking about the power of attorney.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit of a minefield. Now, look, I know we have two other subjects that we have to talk about, and we have about 30 minutes left. So we need to get to networking events, taking control of pensions, futures, investing in gold, and the birth certs and the bonds. So do you want to kind of wrap up on the mortgage side and just two questions on that. Hang on, sorry, we do have a lot of questions coming in. So we'll before we move on to the last two topics, Steve has a few questions for you here.
Yeah, we have a comment from Duncan. Duncan says, "Where you do waive the right when you sign the mortgage application." I think we all know that anyway. And Tiger Boy says, "Thinking outside the box, why not ask, was the mortgage a loan or a trust arrangement?" And he wants us to ask the lads about that one.
Well, you are the grantor. Yep. I totally believe that. I mean, one thing I'm planning to do, let's put it this way. Someone is currently holding the mortgage as a trustee, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you're the grantor of that, you have certain powers. This is something that's being done in America at the moment. Yeah. And has been. We actually spoke to a guy privately who was hot on this page. We spoke to him 2 years ago, funnily enough. We were hoping to have him on the show. He then kind of backed out. However, the grantor retains certain rights when you create a trust, okay? So what if the grantor were to have a word with the current trustee of the mortgage?
Well, you having a talk with yourself?
Well, if I'm the grantor, who's the trustee? Who's holding it at the moment? The trustee is responsible for the administrative side of it. So who's administering the mortgage at the moment?
Well, you are.
No, I'm not. That's what they've got a power of attorney to do, potentially, and that's their authorization to administer it. But someone is acting as a trustee. For example, with Santander, as I understand it, it's a company based on Jersey.
Oh, okay.
Firm of solicitors. Is it accountants? I think it's Moron and Co. Julien Moron and Co. or something like that. Okay. Now, I have phoned them up. I did record it. Hasn't gone out yet. Very interesting chat I had with them. They didn't seem to know who the trustee was of the mortgages that they're holding. I found that rather amazing.
Right, okay.
Maybe they just didn't want me to speak to the party. Now, the point is, whoever's holding the mortgages, what if the grantor of the mortgage were to go and have a word? Now, the basis on the content of that conversation, obviously, won't get into now, but the fact of the matter is that there's more than one way of skinning a rat, and there's more than one way of sticking, a dam in the flow of things. So, that may be an avenue to pursue, and it's certainly an avenue I'm going to pursue at some point in time. So, with regards to the mortgage challenge, it's well worthwhile whether people want to take the challenge or not. I don't think people over in the Republic can take the challenge, but you might want to watch the show on that particular point to glean some information, because it may well assist people in terms of what they're doing. Obviously, the best way of dealing with a mortgage is to never get one in the first place. Now you can actually go and check out the show at http://youandyourcash.com/C for cat, Y for Yankee, O for Orange, Y for Yankee, M for Mother 2. So OYM 2.
Well, what we'll do is, at the end of the show, we're going to get all your links anyway. I want to give that out to the listeners, so it's no problem. Do you have more questions, Steve?
Just in relation to that one, Tiger Boy says, so he can claim a mistake and go back and express the trust, can he not?
Well, as grantor, he could re-express the trust, perhaps. But at the end of the day, again, you're going to have to get the court to recognise that. What I'm suggesting is that you go direct to the trustees and perhaps have a word with the trustees. The trustees have to report back to the grantor to some extent. You'd have to check out what rights the grantor retains as a grantor, or settlor, and then go and liaise with the trustee. The trustee is the party that's administrating everything. So you need to track down who is in this process of securitization, who's the blasted trustee at the moment, who's holding on to the mortgage at the moment.
Okay.
Now it could well be that, what if you were to revoke a power of attorney and that trustee's doing something under power of attorney? All I'm thinking is, sometimes our only weapon at the moment is to put up obstacles.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is, if you're saying that they're administering the mortgage, how does that affect the securitization of them selling that on to a different company? So,
well, if they had no power of attorney, they couldn't.
Well, no, we're going to take for granted that they do have, because it's in agreements anyway.
Well, they certainly think they have, but if they didn't tell you about it and you didn't intend it, I can't see how it can exist.
Well, that means the contract is null and void then.
It certainly means that they've sold it to someone who's bought a boatload of, what's it?
Yeah.
Rhymes with hap.
Yeah, exactly. Steve?
We've heard before, and I know there's a name for this. A lot of this stuff goes over my head, but I know there's a name for it, where the bank, although you've got a mortgage, let's say over 25 years, that they can send you out a letter and they can demand that it all be paid back within a shorter period of time. I've heard of this. Maybe you can tell us, but I think what a lot of people may fear is if they were to go in and start kind of pushing the bank's buttons, that the bank would then become to be a smart arse and come back and say, right, well, okay, you've got 10 years left in your mortgage, we need that to be paid up within the next 10 weeks or bad things are going to happen. Can they do that?
Well, look, again, I mean, I've thought of certain games players utilising a court of record. You've got to understand what it is they're calling in. When they're calling in a repossession, they're repossessing the actual documentation. That's the security that they've got, and it's already in their possession. A mortgage works on the basis that in order to buy something, the party giving you the party that would accept your mortgage over the thing would keep hold of the thing until you'd paid for it. Now, clearly that can't work with what we call a home, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got to live in it. You're not going to let them hold it for 25 years. I mean, where are you going to live? In the gutter for 25 years? That doesn't work. So they had to fudge the product. And this is recognized by legal professors, right? Yeah. And legal authors, and writers and commentators. They recognize that the current mortgage product is a fudge.
Yeah.
So what is it that they're holding? What's the mortgage security? Well, I can tell you it's defined in a lot of conditions. It's the mortgage paperwork. It is it's the offer, which people used to sign a copy of, the conditions, the deed, and all items and instruments executed under the power of attorney. Together, that jigsaw puzzle is the mortgage.
Okay.
That is the security that they pass from one hand to the other and call repossession. The rest, as we know, is illusion. So, if someone were coming out to take a property, an actual bricks and mortar property, the question is, A, what could they utilise to defend that? Well, depending on where you are, and depending on over in Ireland, the Republic, in fact, I would have thought it's supposed to be easier over in the Republic than it is over here to defend that position. But certainly a court of record, I would have thought, is probably the maximum way, the most powerful way of actually doing that. I've thought of a couple of other games plays. There's things that are kind of works in progress that I'm investigating, but you've got to understand the difference, and so have the people that we're dealing with and that are being sent out as robots to execute all of this stuff on behalf of the banks. If they were only educated, and if they only saw it for what it is, they probably would not. If the banks had no one to carry out their dirty work, no dirty work would take place.
No, totally. Totally.
It's very simple, you know.
And believe me, over here it's getting very, very dirty with the people that are being hired to do evictions. And there was a big write-up. Somebody I know did a lot of research, and he did an excellent article on, you know, the people being involved in doing evictions. I won't go any further than that, but it's nasty and it's getting bad, you know.
Well, then, you know, I mean, again, you know, it's something which could, you know, I've certainly got my ideas on that and how you teach those parties a lesson. And I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about pulling the rug under the banking system.
Yeah.
Well, that's
it's very easy. But you know, but again, this is a situation where the vast majority are blinkered to it. They wish they are, they self-impose the blinkers, or they place the blinkers on themselves. They don't want to know. And that's why, to a large extent, you know, we are, you know, I'm kind of getting the attitude that even though those that are awake need to work together to protect yourselves. Forget trying to, you know, to some extent, yeah, educate those that want to be educated, but otherwise they need to learn the lesson themselves. They need to get into a situation where they are biting at the bit to actually want to learn, or something's coming against them to make them want to learn. You can't force people to learn.
Well, mind you, I mean, on saying that, I did put out a request on Facebook, and I think I've said it on the show, that I'd be happy to, you know, work with a group of people locally if we got together once a month to actually help people out and learn the system as we're doing it. But again, people are kind of not bothered, I suppose. You know, there wasn't any real interest. And
but is it that they're not bothered, or they think a lot of it is over their head, because we've been told that the way we've been educated is that, you know, you're too stupid to understand this. Only people with qualifications and bankers and lawyers and solicitors can understand this. So maybe people are just afraid to get involved because they don't understand the game.
Possibly, but also, you know, look, as someone that's done this for 10 years, I'd say laziness, apathy, and, you know, there's always the good old, oh, you do it for me. I come across that a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, people seem to think that, well, let's put it this way, if I handled every case that people have wanted to dump on me, I'd be currently handling about 9,000 cases.
Yeah. No,
and I don't have the time of the day to, you know, I don't have the time to do this. People seem to think that I don't eat, I don't sleep, and that every day to me is actually 20 years.
Yeah. No,
that's a day in my life, you know.
And I totally agree. And people will have to do it themselves. It's the same thing that we said that we'd help teach people how to set up a radio station, how to run a radio station, and we showed them how to do it. But again, there was kind of a lack of interest. And you know, what can you do? You know, you can lead a horse to water and all that.
Absolutely. So all we can do, and this kind of, you know, is forming part of these networking events. I mean, it leads nicely into the networking events that we're going to be rolling out, you know, because what we're trying to do is those people that are actually interested, we're actually trying to improve it. And, you know, we've mentioned on this little schematic that we gave to yourselves, you know, we've mentioned about taking control of pensions and your future, you know, investing in gold. Well, that's a show that we're going to have coming out within the next, you know, well, four shows. The next 4 shows, 4 shows, which are going to be covering pensions, you know, investing in gold, which is money of substance. So that gives you something to actually barter with. You know, if everything goes to pot, if the fiat system collapses, if the computer systems collapse, you need something. You know, and it's something I've been aware of. So, you know, Mark's a member of it, I'm a member of it, and you don't need a fortune to get involved. But at least it's a start to give you something to start investing in, right? Now, we're also going to be talking about, you know, with regards to pensions, people are relying so heavily on institutions. And within these institutions, you've got faceless, nameless people, some of whom are more than prepared to take your pension pot, put it in their back pocket and leave you with nothing, right?
Sweet darling.
And it's happening a lot. So as part of these networking events, what we're trying to do is work with people and show them that, look, you know, we've met up, we've been sourcing professionals, some of whom are within that game, they understand the game, and they understand some maneuvers that are completely, in inverted commas, legal, but which we didn't even know about. And they're useful maneuvers. These are professionals who generally or normally charge a fortune for their services, but we've been able to tap into and get them to provide information to us effectively for nothing. Right? Excellent. On the basis that they will help out our network of people. Obviously, they're picking up business for doing it. They get a pat on the back from whatever companies they work for. But by the same token, it means that we can roll things out and make people or make products accessible to people that would normally not have been able to access these products.
Yeah.
Right? And these kind of mechanisms. And that's what we're going to be rolling out. So there's going to be a whole host of, both free and more advanced, networking events. We're going to maybe take it on tour around the country, to some extent, so that people can come and attend and learn about a number of different, things which they can do where you've actually got professionals helping you to do it. So if you don't want to learn it yourself, you can physically get someone else to do it for you.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's a good offer. I think you had a question in there, Steve. Do you want to say that?
Lynn's question?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a question. Lynn says, what if you are paying a mortgage and the bank ring you about the name on the house? Ring you about the name on the house, and the name we registered isn't the name they have. Can you tell me what I should do?
Right, so you kind of were cutting up at the beginning bit of that. Can you just say that again?
Yeah, I'll read it again. Lynn says, what if you are paying a mortgage and the bank ring you about the name on the house, and the name we registered isn't the name they have? She's wondering what.
Well, then you need to ask some questions about the name that they've got.
Where did they get the name from? Who gave them the details?
Well, and what name are they talking about? Are they talking about a totally different name?
Yeah. So that's something that...
It's a bit of an open question. Yeah. It's like, I mean, the thing is, look, the preemptive solution is don't get a mortgage.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously, there's a lot of us, including me, that are in the situation where we are dealing with a mortgage, or we're at various stages of dealing with the mortgage. Some people are paying, others are not, others are fighting it in different ways. I'm fighting it in a particular way. We're all trying to look for a solution to it. Ultimately, long term, the preemptive thing is not to get one in the first place. Potentially, you can deal with a mortgage. I mean, look, let's put it this way. Let's go back to that cryptocurrency thing, right? What if that cryptocurrency thing actually allows you to put in a small amount and actually get rid of your bloody mortgage? Yeah. Now, look, it's doing something kind of like, I suppose you could say, well, what if I went to Las Vegas and put, £100 down on red, or the number 20? Well, maybe. But at the end of the day, all I'm saying is, it's
got better odds.
We've got better odds. The point is, we're trying to look at things, we're trying to look at every single angle possible to attack these things. And if there's no solution in that system, in the court system, well then look, let's look at some home truths. Number one, are you still voting? If so, why? Are you still paying tax voluntary? It's your duty to not pay tax. Right? The way that the whole system is set up is that, look, you pay tax to say, I'm prepared to chip in to a system that is honest, above board, and works efficiently. What I'm not prepared to do is pay tax into a system and contribute to a system where people are lining their own pockets, feeding their own bellies, okay, and screwing everyone else. That's not what I'm here to do. Okay, and if it really meant that I had to stand up and go to jail for it, well then you send me to jail, because I've got a few things to say to a few of those inmates. I've got a bit of education to give them. Right? You ain't going to want to send me to jail. Now that's if I wanted to get really bolshy about it. Yeah. But let's be really clever about it. Let's be smart. Why don't you do things to avoid paying tax, or to set things up to plan so that there is no tax liability on the immediate horizon? So it's called tax planning. And tax avoidance is legal. It's tax evasion that's illegal. But they're trying to stigmatize tax avoidance now. Yeah. So let's call it tax planning. Let's plan our tax affairs in such a way that we minimize the amount of tax that we have to pay. Okay, that's code language, however you want to look at it, right? The point is, why are we making it easy for some of these people? Why are you accepting the franchise of Parliament? Why are you voting?
Well, I'm not voting, that's for sure.
No,
I gave up that.
But to the listeners, why are some people, I get people complaining about this, that and the other, and yet they're still going along with everything. And I'm like, well, what the hell are you playing at? Yeah. You're going along with it. You're saying, you know what, I don't want to vote, as they're filling in the cross on the voter's ballot box thing, right? It's just like, you're saying you don't want to do it, and you're doing it. That's a mixed message, your words are not mirroring your actions, right? Well, they are mirroring, they're completely opposite, but they're not in line with, the actions are not in line with the words. So I think that people have to understand that we can make this really difficult, right? And you make it difficult by not purchasing stuff, by not consuming stuff unnecessarily, by not taking part, by, keeping funds out of the bank, right? There's a whole host of things we could do, right? I mean, I on White Rabbit, dare I say it, a fair while back, I was doing this thing about boycott the bank, and I thought up a very nifty idea whereupon we could actually bring down a bank. And I pulled it in the end because some people were getting so stupid with it. It was ridiculous, but it was actually, I think it would absolutely work, I'm not going to go back over it, but, ultimately, I think if bank staff understood that, look, they've bought into the system, and if a whole bunch of people that were speaking the truth wanted these bank staff to actually look at their policies and be honest and do an honest job, and that if they refused to do that, that we would actually collapse the bank and pull our business away from that bank so that these people lost their jobs, perhaps that would actually make them take a little bit more notice.
Mm. I know somebody over here did try that. They picked a certain date, and they said to everybody on that date, everybody withdraw your money, but it didn't kind of work. You need to have the momentum and the drive. But lads, I'm just
not if you've got people queuing up at 7 o'clock in the morning outside the bank, because that will hit social media.
Well, that's true.
You see, if people started, what I thought, I came up with the idea of if you start queuing up outside a bank at 7 o'clock in the morning, people walking to work are going to say, hold on, what's going on here? There's 20 people queuing up outside the bank. Why are you queuing up? Oh, because I've heard there's a run on the bank. You better get your money out. Now, you don't make a big deal of it. That will do, the people walking past will put that on social media, and that will go like wildfire. Why? Well, because they don't want to lose their money. They want to get their money out of the bank.
Yeah.
You allow social media to play the game. You allow human nature to play its way out.
Mm.
Now, the point is, do we really want to do that? Because what would happen. Does that then give the banking industry the excuse to then collapse the banking industry and blame it on the people that were queuing up outside the bank?
Exactly.
Which is why I pulled my videos, because were they going to pin the blame on me?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Right. Has to be done subtly. Lads, we have about 10 minutes left, and I know you have the birth cert and the bond recent seminar that you've obviously done. So I don't know whether you can fit that in 10 minutes.
Absolutely.
What I'd like to say on the birth cert thing, it seems to be in America that you can go along on some website and find out the value of your birth cert. And because you were bond, but it's on bond paper and it's bondage to the system. But I don't know of any place in Ireland or the UK where you can go and check your value of what you're worth.
Well, in the actual seminar, we were not particularly talking about that. What we were talking about is the obvious bond in terms of the addition of your given names to your family name. Now, in France, this is something, Mark's got a lot of associates based in France, and in France, whenever you're communicating with officialdom, courts, solicitors, banks, whatever, everybody expresses their name as, for example, Simon, upper lower, and Goldberg, block caps.
And quite often
that is the style. That is the style, right? Mm. Now, the point is that is an obvious addition, an obvious bonding, a gluing, a marriage between upper lowercase, the given names, Simon, and the surname, the family name, expressed in corporate style, which is block caps, right? Now, what we explore in the seminar, which is, funnily enough, it's going up, it should be up and live tomorrow, I would have thought by tomorrow night. So we've already held the seminar in November. It was fantastic, thanks to everyone for coming. But we've now got the seminar available as a replay, which people can obtain together with the handouts, the PowerPoint, and everything that goes along with it. But what we explored in that is the fact that in many respects, what we're looking for is an ability to protect our property, right, and trade, right? So you want to be able to trade without the fear and the risk of losing property, but you need to be able to hold your property in such a way so that it's not at risk. And what we explain in that seminar is how you do it. Because believe it or not, the system, I believe the system was created, right, so that you can do this, and that certain parties who are in the know are doing it. But of course, the rest of us are not privy to that little key piece of information which gives us the heads up that it's happening. And so what we tend to do is we tend to go out and we tend to trade in our name, Simon Goldberg. And of course, when I go and buy property, I tend to put it in my name, Simon Goldberg.
Yeah.
And if things go wrong, what happens? Well, they come and get your property. Or if you get a speeding ticket, they come and take the car. Or they raid your bank account. Or they raid this. Why? Well, because it's all in the same name. Now, the fact of the matter is that if you look at the styles and if you do a little bit of analysis, which is what we've done, you know, and this is what we present in the seminar, we present very simple solutions to show you that all you do is make use of what the system has given you and the way they've actually set things up for you to make a clear distinction between how you trade and how you hold property. And thereby you preempt the problem. You never risk any property.
So what would be the example of, say, I don't know, a parking fine or something?
Well, I mean, a parking fine, you know, what we're talking about is what's at risk. I mean, let's put it this way. How would it be, before the show came on, you mentioned something and I said about preempting that problem altogether. Yeah. So, for example, I mean, what if someone's you're being taken to court, right? And the natural fear for people is that, oh my God, I'm going to incur fees. I'm going to incur costs. That's my bank account is going to get wiped out.
Got to take time off work.
Time off work. I might have to sell some property. I might lose. They might send the bailiffs in. Yeah. You know, I might lose the house and this, that, and the other. Okay. Well, question. What if when you get taken to court, because, you know, you only get taken to court if you've been involved in a contract or something, which unless you've done something wrong, committed a crime. Yeah. Then you're only really going to be taken to court for some kind of legislation breach of contract. Yeah, breach of contract. You've done something where you owe some money, right? Yeah. You've now done something where you're either getting fined, criminal offence, or something like that, or you are or some kind of tort, or you are breaching a contract, right? An agreement. Now, what if you've got no property to take? What if you've got no money? There's an old saying: you can't get blood out of a stone, right? Yeah. Okay, great. So now, what you're worried about?
Well, again, what they do is, if you don't have any physical money, then you'll have the bailiffs coming around taking the things, the value of.
Yeah, but what if you haven't got any things?
What if all of those things aren't yours? What if they belong to somebody else?
Listen, I was thinking about this a few weeks ago, and I had this conversation with somebody also yesterday, and I said, the difference between rich people and poor people is the rich people don't want to own anything because they're not liable. And the poor people want to own everything, which means they are liable.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's even a bling culture we've all been encouraged to get involved with, where you actually put online everything you've got, telling the taxman and showing everyone what they can take. Now, the point is, you know, if you're going to own nothing, then you literally need to not only show that you own nothing, but you need to own nothing. Because if you own nothing, no one can take anything away from you. Now, I appreciate there's a lot of people out there and they repeat this, and I've seen it a million times on forums, right? But do people actually really understand what that means?
No, not at all.
Very few do.
As an example of that, though, you've probably seen it on these various programs. What is it? Can't pay, we'll take it away and stuff like that.
Won't pay, or whatever it was.
The bailiff comes up to the house, he wants to repossess this, that and the other, and they look at the car and say, oh, we'll take your car, and they look at another car, oh, we can't take that because it's on HP. The person who they claim owns the debt doesn't own the property that the bailiff wants to take, so the bailiff walks away empty-handed. Now, you don't need a HP company to own your car. You can arrange that in other ways. Yeah.
This is something. I know where you're going with this. This is also a rich dad, poor dad idea.
Can I just say, Duncan has something here that might be interesting. I don't claim to understand it, but he said put all that you own in your family trust. How can you do that?
That's one option.
That is one option. Yeah, it's a trust account. Yeah.
That's one option. But here's something else, right? Okay, look, I'm going to give you a snippet from the seminar, right? Okay. The public, is it a trust?
You might want to explain that a bit.
So the public, what we call the public corporation. If you can imagine, the UK is a corporation, right? Yeah. Okay. Every person, every voter, if you like, is a compartmentalized corporation within that corporation. In other words, if you do something wrong and you are sued under indictment, we found the Act of Parliament, we present it in that seminar, we show that you are being prosecuted as a corporation, in your corporate capacity.
Yeah.
Right. So, in actual fact, what you've got is the United States, for example, is a corporation, and every person within that corporation is a corporation, a smaller part of the corporation.
Yeah.
It's one big corporation, everyone's a little department, right? You're responsible for your department. Likewise over here, exactly the same. The reason when you have the right to vote, that franchise, you are just a department within the overall corporation. All right? All of it could be looked at, could be described as a trust. Right?
Okay.
So when you are operating in that corporate capacity, you are, let's put it this way, something legal applies to you. You're operating in a legal capacity of some type. You're operating as part of a corporation. We know that legal land applies to corporations. It's the language of corporations. But legal land also applies to trustees, because trustees hold legal title. Okay.
Well, we have about 2 minutes, so can we... I know that doesn't give us a lot of time, but in a nutshell, it's basically the trust account is one way of doing it, yeah?
Well, let's put it this way. You're holding it in that name, in that corporate name, you are holding things as a trustee. You just never tell anyone that you're holding it as a trustee. Now, you can then create an alternate trust as a trustee, if this makes sense to people out there.
Yeah.
In other words, if you're a trustee, if someone comes up to me and they want to take this mobile phone I'm holding, and I say, well, it's not mine, I'm holding it in trust for someone. They can't take it. It's not mine.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally get
trustee.
you. Yeah.
So in that capacity, if we're holding property in that capacity, it cannot be taken away from us. You've just got to understand that it can't be taken away from you.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I think we should do a show on this in the new year, because this is very important for a lot of people. And this is all legal and above board, and it can be done. A lot of people aren't aware of it. And it's something that I think we should talk about. But lads, the information on tonight was fantastic. Fair play to all the work you're doing. Thanks a lot for coming on. Much appreciated. We'll definitely do a part 2 in the new year, because I think people need to know this. It's groundbreaking stuff for people who aren't aware of it, and the fact that they can take things back in and control things in their own life and not being screwed by the system. So I think it's definitely beneficial. So a big thank you from myself and Steve. Anyway, I'm going to pass you off to Steve. Steve's going to get all your contact details and where people can track you down and find you.
No worries.
Yeah, no, it's been great information. A lot of comments coming up on both of the chat rooms there. People are kind of chatting amongst themselves and they're agreeing with a lot of what you're saying. It all makes a lot of sense to some people, although it probably goes over the heads of a lot of people. Me being one of them. But I mean, I know you do have the website there, youandyourcash.com. You've kindly sent us over some links with the /OYM 1, 2 and 3, which we've posted up on the chat rooms there for people to go and check out at their leisure. And I'm guessing if they go and check out the website, a lot of the information will hopefully be in easy to understand layperson's terms, so people can get the gist of it. Are there any other links that you want to give out there just before we go?
No, I think that's it. I think that's all you need. I mean, obviously you've got the main website as well. The fact of the matter is, just look out. Anyone that goes on and subscribes to any of the shows or requests information on any of the shows automatically becomes a subscriber. If you want to subscribe properly, go on to insiders.youandyourcash.com and you can subscribe there. There is a button on the main website as well that links through to that. What we're looking to do is provide people with actual solutions. There's loads of info out there. I've been on this game for 10 years. And what people are crying out for are actual solutions that they can do, even if they don't know a lot. And that's what we're attempting to provide for them.
Yeah. Just a quick shout out to Joan. Yes, at some point we will be coming to Scotland.
Fantastic stuff. Well, lads, again, that's fantastic. And I recommend that people check out the trust account and what that all entails, because that might be handy the way things are at the moment. But lads, stay with us there for a minute. We're just going to go off to a musical break and we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com and peoplesinternetradio.com.
Okay, yes, we're back. That was Paul McCartney. He wants to make sure we're all having a wonderful Christmas. Well, yeah, it's okay. It hasn't started yet, Paul, but we hope it'll be nice. A good one.
Brilliant show by Simon and Mark, and we just said to them there during the music break that we'll definitely have them back on, because I think people need to really get into this and understand that if you want to kind of start getting an idea on the psychology of money, I do recommend getting the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's a very, very good book, and very basically what the book is about is that this guy who wrote the book, he's a Hawaiian millionaire, and when he was growing up, his real dad was a college educated professor who never had any money, and his poor dad was a college educated professor who never had any money, and his rich dad was his friend's dad who actually left school at 15 with no education. And yeah, but he was the guy with the millionaire. He was the guy with the millions, and the professor was the guy who didn't have any money. And I just felt the book was very good regarding the psychology of money and how people think about it. And it's the way the rich people work. Rich people will set up corporations and put everything under the corporation for their kids. Of course, poor people don't do that. And rich people will buy an asset, and poor people buy liabilities. So when you buy a car, it's a liability because it's going to devalue when you buy it. But if you were to buy something that creates money, so let's say, I'll give you an example what this guy did. He wanted to buy a new car. And he knew that if he bought the car, it'd be a liability because it'd devalue as soon as you drive off the forecourt. So what he did, being a businessman, is he bought a house, and then he rented out the house, and the extra money he got from the rent, because when the rent was covered, there was money over. That money that was over paid for a bank loan that actually got him the car that he wanted. All right. So that means that it didn't cost him. He was getting the asset was the house, and he was getting a car that wasn't really costing him anything because the person renting the house was actually paying for the car. And that's how it works. Now, I was involved with something like this regarding compound interest and finance when I was in London. And I was, this is all legal on the board, by the way. There's nothing, illegal about it. Basically, banks will pay you a higher rate of interest if you have savings. And then that interest you could actually take out and offset it off a loan that you might have with another bank. And it's just the way it works. But because of the interest rate at the moment is very low, because the mortgage rate, the interest rate of the ECB and the British Central Bank is quite low, so that means interest rates are going to be low, and they go work together hand in hand. But anyway, that's going to be another show to talk about and how to do it. But there are ways and means of looking at things and changing it. So we'll definitely get Mark and Steve on, Mark and Simon on in the new year, and we'll do a part 2. But yeah, we have we're not going to be here next week. Obviously, next Sunday is the 24th. As I said, we're going to be doing the Santa Claus bit. Well, Steve will be doing it more than I will. My son's a bit too old for that now, but we'll be getting things ready for the next day because we have family over and all that kind of stuff. So we'd just like to say to everybody, we hope you have a great Christmas, and we will be doing a show on the 31st, which is the New Year's Eve. We're going to be doing the annual review show. It'll be just me and Steve. There'll be no guest, and we're just going to be talking over, the guests that came on the show over the year, and look forward to, see what 2018 is going to have in store for us, I suppose. And then we'll start booking guests for 2018 and set up the schedule for that. And we do have the Open Minds Conference in March. Don't forget that. Do you know the dates, Steve?
Oh, yes, I do.
2nd, 3rd and 4th of March, is it?
Yeah.
That we're going to be. So if you do want to see myself and Steve in the flesh,
with our clothes on.
We will be at the Open Minds Conference in Waterford, and you can come up and say hello there. Don't be shy, and have a chat with us. So we're going to be there in March. But
it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll be there on the Saturday.
Saturday morning we'll be there. But we'll be talking about that anyway in the new year when we get over the Christmas period. But that's really it. Good show, great information, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully we have a quiet week. But you know, remember I said this on last week about, you know, things breaking and things not working, and that kind of still happening. And I don't know whether it's me, but I've just...
You're a Jonah.
I don't know what it is. Maybe, you know, I mean, I did speak to Thomas about this, and he said, Jay, he said, I'm not the only one. He said, it is happening a lot. Maybe there's something in the ether or something happening. People are saying about things between dietary issues and food issues and vibrations and energies and people not being well, the chemtrail cough, this kind of respiratory issue that a lot of people are having, a cough and flus and everything else. There's just so much going on. But at the end of the day, you know, all you can do is just go with it and do what you can. Take your serapeptides, take your spirulina, and stay away from your fluoride and your aspartame and all that stuff, and do all the good stuff. And you know, don't overindulge at Christmas. I'll try that anyway.
Yeah, don't overindulge. I think that's impossible to do.
Well, overindulging?
Yeah.
Gosh, you do it every year, don't you?
Sorry, it's impossible not to do.
Yeah, the obligatory, you know, you have to have the Christmas dinner and then you go inside, switch on the TV and fall asleep. That has to be done. That has to be done. So what's your plans? You're just having a chill out Christmas then, are you?
That's pretty much it, yeah. We're just going to do the Sandy thing, because obviously I've got 3 of them, and I've got 3 children, and I've got two for Sandy. So yeah, we'll be kind of just doing the Sandy thing and just chilling, relaxing. Yeah.
Is I hear there might be a bit of snow coming in. The bets for the White Christmas has gone down, which means that you might be expecting something for it. So we might end up having a kind of White Christmas. You never know. Yeah. But we're indoors, hopefully, if that happens.
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't mind waking up to a couple of feet of snow on Christmas Day, because I'm not going anywhere, so that's okay. But you know, if I have to go somewhere, then I don't. You know what I'm like. Yeah. I don't even like driving in the frost.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I don't know who's up on PIR at all, but there'll be another show on PIR coming up. But from myself, anyway, take it easy. Have a great Christmas. For myself, Alan James, and we will see you on the 31st on New Year's Eve. We'll be doing a show then at the annual review. So take care of yourself, and we'll catch you then. Have a great Christmas. Take it easy and don't go too mad.
Okay, for myself, Stephen George. Yeah, everyone have a very great, good, fantastic, super duper, peaceful Christmas, and enjoy it, and hope everything goes well for everyone. I'm just going to play out with this. Because we've got 2 minutes left. We got 1 minute. I'm going to play out this. Have a great Christmas, everyone. Take care.
Open your mind.